Well, Dossie, it's rare that I ever get a tinge of nerves when I come into a podcast these days, and they say don't meet your heroes, but I'll tell you what, I'm very excited that I have today. Hugh van Cuylenburg, welcome to the dos&d show.
Oh, well, your heroes turned up 25 minutes late.
Oh, don't say that.
I apologise.
No.
Sorry about that.
Mate.
Thanks for having me. No, it's great to be here.
No.
Listen to the episode with Iron Man, and whose name you guys nailed, but I am not going to nail. What's his surname?
Bevilacqua.
Yeah, Bevilacqua.
It's only because I had to practice a lot to get that right.
Yeah.
I'm so in awe of any endurance athletes.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with, and an Iron Man, like the amount of training. That training is insane. So I love that. So anyway, yeah, thanks for having me. I'm going to jump into someone else's episode.
Yeah, we'll just review the dos&d show
Yeah.
from now
Well,
on.
I want to touch on the question. Go straight to the question you asked. So, what type of cricketer are you? Let's go with that.
yeah,
I know
let's
this
start.
is really random and a random way to start, but I reckon just go with it because we're talking about the Ashes.
Well, retired would be my first retired cricketer.
For how long, though?
I played my first game of cricket when I was 7, and I don't reckon I missed a game from the age of 7 to 37.
Wow.
Yeah, I literally played for 30 years.
Wow.
And I had a season in England as well, so that's where you go Australian summer, then straight to English summer, then straight back to. So I played so many games of cricket, it's ridiculous. I would describe myself as, well, quite literally, I was a left arm opening bowler.
Ooh.
And a very lower order batsman, like 9, 10, 11, probably more 10, 11 than 9. And I loved the game so much. It was everything for a long time. And now I would say I'm slightly jaded, as in I put in way too much time and effort into cricket. I probably should have just chilled out a bit. When I realised I wasn't going to play for Australia, which was probably around age 21, I should have just enjoyed it a bit more. But I took it very seriously for a very long time.
Well, we don't like being humble in the dos&d show, so how good were you when you say your ambition was to play for Australia?
Bowler?
Was it...
Yeah. I would say I got worse at one point. I was on track. Like I'm going to play for Australia. I played for Victoria in the under-19s. And then when I was 20, I got picked to play in the Victorian second 11 side.
Wow.
I got asked to train with the Victorian Bushrangers for a week. That was like when Moonee was, it was the same week. So Moonee did this, I think it was for Vic Health. He did this thing where he quit smoking for 2 months and they'd pay him. It was like some kind of thing just he was a challenge.
Yeah.
And that was my week. I went into the MCG to train with them. So nervous. Like and I walked in there and Warnie goes, "Hey mate, can you just stand at the door for me at the changing rooms?" And it was just, my job was to stand there and tell him if any media were out there so he could smoke. So he could have a dart in the changing rooms. Yeah, and I just stood there very nervous. I was like, no, Mr. Warner stood there.
Mr. Warren.
Yeah, no dramas. And so, but I realised, I took my bag there because I was I'm training with them, I'll have a hit with them, all that kind of stuff. But I realised,
That's awesome.
I realised pretty quickly I was not there to bat. I was just there to bowl them. So I just bowled for the whole week. And but then after that, I just got worse and worse and worse and worse. Like, you're meant to get better up into the age of about, I don't know, as a bowler, maybe 30. I just lost confidence. I couldn't swing it as much. And I don't know, I just didn't get it's really strange. I definitely peaked at age 17, which is very strange for a cricketer. That's when I was at my best. And then by the time I was 37, I'd say I was pretty ordinary.
So I reckon I peaked at 13 in football and it was all downhill from there. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, there you go. You understand.
Yeah, for sure. Look,
That's an amazing place to start an interview.
I know.
How good were you at cricket?
we love to jump around a little
Okay.
bit and we like to have fun with our guests.
Sorry, also, can I just jump in very quickly?
Sure, absolutely.
I have a cough at the moment, and like when I laugh, it just descends into a coughing fit. So I'm going to try not to laugh today.
Okay.
So if you say something funny, I'll probably say like, "That was funny," and I won't laugh because
I won't be offended.
Yeah,
Challenge accepted, or
Challenge accepted.
I'm just going to give you a thumbs up if it's funny. I
Okay.
just
okay,
can't. I can't.
I love that.
Okay, good.
But we were talking, Hugh, and for us, I mean, we love your story, and a lot of our listeners love your story. We're going to keep plugging the book because it genuinely changed our life, both books, but the Resilience Project, really for us, it is where it all started.
That's definitely everyone's favourite, the first one.
Yeah.
It was like the sequel didn't go as well, but that's okay.
Well, I actually preferred, I loved Let Go.
Thank you.
Let Go is something that I think about quite often in situations, but actually, funny enough, Dos read the book first, The Resilience Project, I was like, mate, you got to go. Yeah, you have to go read this book. So I'm like, yep, I'll go. So I went to my local.
This is great.
I went to my local bookshop, and I walked in and I said, "Have you got a copy of the Resilience Program?" And the woman looked at me and she said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, the Resilience Program. Like it's blowing up at the moment. This is like 2020." And she's like, and she's typing it in, and she can't find anything. I said, "Are you sure?" And then I looked and I saw it on the bookshelf. I went, "Oh, project. Okay, that's where we got him. we got him."
It didn't take long.
But we're really interested now, looking back at everything you've done, especially over the last few years. Do you pinch yourself at where you're at and how everything's happened
Yes.
for you?
Yeah, the very short answer is yes. There's so many things that happen now. I just, like, how on earth is this happening to me right now? There's so many... There's so many examples. I'll tell you my favourite thing, though, is, like, I get to do some really cool stuff, meet some really cool people and go to some incredible places. What is it now? So about a month ago, I was very fortunate to be like part of the Queensland State of Origin group and do a lot of work up there, which is crazy for a Victorian who doesn't know the rules of... Like, I'm literally in the coach's box. Like, it's Billy Slater, Josh Hannay, one of the assistant coaches, Matt Ballon, one of the assistant coaches, and then a guy who does the most stressful job in the world. His job is to just provide stats like that to Billy when he wants them.
Oh, no.
And also he's got all the footage, so Billy will go, "Can I see what happened just there?" And he has to roll back and I get so stressed with this bloke. I'm like, oh my God, if it doesn't work, like, everyone's just going to yell at you straight away. But I'm in the coach's box. I still don't know why. That's where I am. And there was a point in game 3 where so Matt Ballon was listening to the umpires. There was a review happening. Josh Hannay was speaking to the coaches on the ground, so it'd be Jonathan Thurston, and the statisticians working away something, and Billy goes, "How many tackles have we had?" And no one answered. And I was, "I don't know the rules." And he just swung around and looked at me and goes, "How many tackles?" And I went, "It's 3. 3? And he goes, "Really?" And I went, "No, actually, no. I don't. I'm so sorry. I made up a number. I actually don't know. I don't know. I'm so sorry. Don't ask. Please don't ask those questions." Because I have moments like that. There's a point to this story, but I have moments like that where I'm like, "What? How am I here? This is incredible."
Yeah.
But then on that very same day, I had this direct message on Instagram from this lady whose son had just been diagnosed with anorexia nervosa, and it was this long message about how much the story of my sister had helped her and made her feel like there was hope. And that's the stuff that I still pinch myself at. That's the stuff where I'm like, that's what I really, really makes me, that's what fills me with joy. And yes, it's a very much a pinch me moment of, like, walking through some court stadium with Billy Slater, about to go to the coach's box with a sport I don't understand. But the stuff that I really just fills my cup is the messages I get like that, because that's crazy. She was from a town 2 hours north of Perth, which I'd never even heard of before, and the fact that the book had helped her, that was kind of like the highlight of the day.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Is it still, sorry to jump in, Dos, I'm interested because for people that, like, you hear about, excuse me, like, athletes and they get autographs or they ask for photos and autographs all the time, and does it kind of wear off? Those messages that you receive, because we saw the effect the book had. Like, I remember I read the book in a day. I gave it to my sister.
It's not a competition.
No, but she read it in a day, and then she passed it on to my next sister. She read it in a day, and we were all at home, and I just remember both times with them, they came walking down the stairs streaming with tears.
Really?
Just affected them, like,
Yeah.
and they don't, and one of them in particular doesn't read. And I said, just try it. Get through chapter or 2, and she read it, boom, in a day.
Yeah.
So when you hear messages like you just mentioned with the one you received the other day on Instagram, does it still have that same feeling as it might have had 3, 4, 5 years ago?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, they all. It's what I'm finding really stressful at the moment is, like, there's a lot of messages, and, like, some people will send it on a day where I'm not on Instagram, and then it'll just go missing.
Sure.
Other days I'll have time and I'll get back to everyone who writes, because I think it's so nice when people reach out like that. But I feel really bad because sometimes I miss them. But it still has the same. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Actually, I had a guy the other day. When was I? I was in Sydney, and a guy pulled me up and he goes, "Hey mate, I listened to your podcast, read the book, and thanks." And he goes, "Yeah, I actually have written to you a couple of times now." And I went, "Oh, did I write back to you?" And he goes, "No." And I went, "Oh, I'm so sorry." He goes, "Yeah, he goes, it's probably wouldn't be hard, just a quick, like." And I
Really?
went, "Oh mate, I would have. I just would have missed it." And
Wow.
he goes, he looked so hurt. And he goes,
Wow.
"Yeah, okay." He just didn't believe me. He was like, he was looking at me like, going, "You saw it and you chose not to write back." It was really full on.
Wow.
So I said, "Send it, like, message me again, put it to the top, and I'll get back to you." And he didn't. I think he was like, "Yeah." Well, I hope he didn't. I hope I missed it again.
Wow.
Gosh.
So yeah, but anyway, it's no, No, it's always lovely. It's always
Yeah.
great. It's always great.
Well, even for you, like when I think it was one of our videos. I can't remember what it was, but you liked one of our videos. It randomly popped up in your algorithm somehow.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how we both were like, what the fuck? Like, oh my God. Like one of our idols just like, and I think it was a stupid video too. It was like, it was something.
Maybe
about,
not embarrassing him.
No, but it was about something that a mistake we'd made or something. And we both, like, I rang D and we just were just going nuts. We're like, oh my God. Like, Hughes liked our video. And then.
Look, I'll tell you why I like what you guys do so much, because I do feel like in my entire life, I reckon when I look back at everything, the most lost I've ever felt in my entire life was probably from the age of 18 to 25. That's the point where I was like, what is going on here? I am so lost. But there was no way I'd admit that to anyone ever. There was no point I would have said to anyone, I'm a little bit unsure of what I need to do next. Or because I loved school so much. And my psychologist said to me a while ago, I think you were designed for school. Like you love talking to people and you're good at sport. Like you love social situations, you love friends, and you were good at sport. And that's kind of, for me, going to school, that was like my currency was sport and friendship. So I loved it. And then finished school and went to do a degree that I didn't really want to do. And I had no friends at uni because I just had nothing in common with any of these people. And I all of a sudden became shy at uni. I was like, I'm not a shy person. All of a sudden I was shy. I was like, hey, where's this come from? I was so miserable at what I was doing. Of course, my girlfriend from school had ended our relationship in first year uni. And all of a sudden I was single. I was an absolute no one. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Cricket, all of a sudden I wasn't as good as I was a couple of years back, and I was so lost, but I just pretended. Everyone was like, how's uni? Yeah, it's awesome. How's cricket going? Yeah, really good. And I was too shy to even speak to girls because I was like, well, I don't have the identity of being good at sport at school. Really know. I was so lost and I just didn't know. So I would have loved to have had this podcast. Not that the podcasts are around 50 years ago when I was between the age of 18 and 25, but there was no conversations like this anywhere. And so that's why I like the video. That's why I love what you guys do on the podcast, because I would have loved this podcast. I needed this podcast when I was, early 20s, because I was pretending I was fine and I wasn't. All I had to do was say to someone, I'm a little bit unsure of what's going on here. I have been happy my entire life and now I've lost confidence. I don't really quite know what's going on. So yeah, that's why it's a long story, but that's why.
Thank you for saying that.
It's amazing.
But on that point, the pressure, we love talking about that, or we have talked about it a lot. Do you see and notice that there probably is a huge amount of pressure on people in that age? Well, let's talk about young men in particular.
Yeah.
Like, do you notice that yourself now being older? You went through that yourself. Is it probably gone up a notch? Because we've had people on who think it's even gone up a notch now because of socials and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm so glad social media wasn't around when I was in my early 20s, because it would have made what I was going through a lot worse, because I would have looked at everyone else who's just killing it and going. I mean, all my mates, I'd compare myself to my mates who, even looking back, maybe they weren't, but what they put out to me was they were on the right track. They were in the course they wanted to be in, and it was leading to a job they wanted to do. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so seeing my 5 mates from school, knowing what they wanted to do and enjoying uni, compared to me. So I was comparing myself to 5 people. If there was social media, I would have compared myself to however many millions of people who looked like they were knew what they were doing. So yeah, it would have made it a lot worse.
Yeah.
I see. So a lot of the young men I work with at elite sporting clubs are in that age of 18 to 25. And even these young men who are living their dream, like they are literally playing AFL football or NRL footy, or they're living their dream, and yet I still see that same level of like self-doubt or insecurity, or not really knowing exactly, it might be, am I going to get picked this week? Or, I mean, for so many people they're living their dream, like they must be so happy, but they're still like, this is not the position I want to be playing in. People are saying stuff about me online. I'm getting criticised for this. Whereas I feel like saying to them, hey, like this is what you want to do as a kid. You're living your dream. Not many people can say that. It's common amongst these guys that I'm working with. I've got no doubt it's common amongst people who are not living their dream. So yeah, I just wish like at school someone had said to me throughout year 12, hey, just enjoy this, because like the next few years you're going to be quite lost, and that's totally fine. It's actually part of it. Like that's part of life's journey, is being unsure of like it's going to. I didn't start doing the resilience project till I was 28, 29, so I had like a good 10 years out of school. Even when I was a primary school teacher, I'm doing primary school teaching going, I enjoy this, but I don't think this is what I'm meant to be doing with my life. But I guess there's nothing, I don't know what else to do. So I guess this is what I do for the rest of my life. So even that was like my late 20s, I was still a bit lost as well. So I think it's totally normal to be very insecure, have a lot of self-doubt, be unsure of your journey when you're in your 20s. Certainly it was for me.
Yeah.
And I think why everybody loves you and like, especially the way you write, because it's so relatable. We're all about relatability. That's we always say to ourselves before podcasts, try and relate to listeners, the audience, that kind of thing, who we're trying to target. And I mean, straight away, there's things that I relate with the sport. Obviously, you talk about the peroxide hair. I did the same thing going around America with bleach blonde.
I think it was like part of the...
It's
even still on the logo.
Exactly. We do need a bit of an update there. But even like the GEM principles, like to I suppose, flip the way we probably traditionally think of words like that and put them in such a way that actually relates to everyday life. Obviously, it's swept through footy clubs, swept through this town, swept through Australia, what you're doing, which is amazing. We both come from sales and events background.
Yeah, right.
And in events, for example, at the moment, prior to COVID, it was starting to die down too, but now especially it's really difficult to get a crowd. But you've seemed to have hacked that. We interview a lot of people that go to schools. They really struggle because schools don't want to pay money for this kind of thing. But the fact that you've kind of hacked that and there's such a demand for you, I think it really speaks volumes of what you've created.
I think that's very kind. Thank you. I reckon so I try very hard wherever I go or whatever I'm speaking at to tell stories.
Yeah.
And we, as human beings, we love stories. Like we just love listening to stories. And I think I learnt that at sporting clubs. It's like playing footy or playing cricket. It was, I really enjoyed footy and cricket, but I loved more than anything just talking shit after the game or going to the pub afterwards and just talking about stuff. And people just love hearing stories. So I think wherever I am, if it's like on stage with the Imperfects or doing a tour, speaking tour, I kind of want whoever's listening to me, or whether it's at the podcast or at a school, I'd like someone to think they're just at the pub with me, like having a beer and I'm just telling them a story. I think that's like, that's what you guys do so well. When you listen to it, it's like, you feel like you hang out with a couple of mates. And I think that is what we sort of, no one wants to feel like they're being lectured. No one wants to listen to someone. Well, I certainly don't want to listen to someone who's too overly polished and because to me, I don't really trust that. Like, I feel like I want to hear, someone sent me is a really good mate of mine, and because I do a lot of running now, my coach, he's a guy called Brendan Cole, and he's an Olympian, 400-metre hurdler, and he was on a podcast the other day, and he said, can you listen to it and give me some feedback? And he said, I'm worried there's too many ums and ahs in it. And I said, no. There was the perfect amount, because that's how many ums and ahs you do in real life. I felt like I was listening to you speak in real life, and that's all you need to do is just sound like, you don't need to walk around and do a TED Talk where everything's word for word perfect. The TED Talks annoy me because it's not the way we speak in real life.
Yeah.
Or the best ones, are the really good ones. You're like, I can tell that's how that person speaks in real life. And that's what your podcast is. It's like, it's two blokes speaking like they speak in real life. We chatted for 10 minutes beforehand. There's no difference here. And that's what, I think is what people enjoy listening to. Someone who just sounds real.
Thank you.
I must say though, Hugh,
I know where this is going.
Because every and ah that's said on our show, this man is OCD to the point where every every it's gone.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Only because I have a different take on that. I agree totally with what you're saying, but the only reason I do it.
But do you do more and ahs when you're doing this than you do in real life?
No, I don't think so. But I edited them out of the show, and the reason why was very early. One of the first times I ever edited the show, I realised how many times and ah and irrelevant sentences were used, and it took the podcast down by about 5 minutes. And I thought that's 5 minutes of somebody's life. And then I'm like, multiply that over 100 episodes. And I'm like, wow, you're taking hours of people's lives listening to ums and ahs. Now, it might be a ridiculous way to think of things.
No, we're
customer focused here.
You're respecting your audience. That's another really important. That's genuinely a very good thing to do, is like respect your audience. And that's clearly what you're doing. And I listen to myself on our podcast. And I think the episode that's coming out on this coming Monday, I would listen to it. I was like, well, there's a lot more ums and ahs than I would probably. And I was going to send a message to Bridge saying, can we edit my ums and ahs? No, but that's respecting your audience.
Gosh.
Different way to look at it.
Yeah. Well, on the Imperfects, it's such a good podcast. Maybe talk a bit about you and your brother in particular, obviously Ryan as well. You guys have created this amazing trio. It's now a live show. How's that transition been from the studio to the live audience?
Yeah, it's we tried very hard to make sure it was nothing really like the podcast. We didn't want it to be like an episode of the podcast. We decided it should be a proper stage show, fully written with script and everything. And so, I mean, to be honest, that was my idea of what it would be. I thought it would just be like this on the stage. And Ryan Shelton, I get a really good look when I'm working with Ryan. You get a very good look at why Hamish and Andy are so incredibly, why they're the greatest comedy duo, because there is so much. Well, this is what I'm assuming. Neither Hamish or Andy have sat me down and said this to me, but I look at the level of professionalism and how thorough Ryan is, and firstly, how intelligent they all are, how intelligent Ryan is, the thought that goes behind everything we put out there. And so when it came to doing a stage show, it wasn't going to be just an interview where we just hope the interview goes well on stage. And it's what I think Ryan said in our first chat about it. We went away, Bridget, our producer, Ryan, Josh and myself, we went away, and I think Ryan said was we need to work out what the audience would like, and then we have to work out how we massively over-deliver on that. And for us, it was we want people to walk away feeling moved, we want them to laugh, and we want them to learn something. And so there are three things we want, and then how do we massively over-deliver on that? And it was, rather than starting by walking on stage and saying, hi, we have a song as an opening number, like there's a song we sing, because that to us was like very funny way of starting. So that's over-delivering on hoping that we stumble across something funny in the first few minutes. And that's, to me, like a little window into perhaps why, Hamish and Andy are incredibly talented, the most talented comedy duo I think Australia's ever produced. But then also they work extremely hard, and they are very measured measured's the right word, but very thorough in everything they do. And I've seen that through the work that Ryan does with us. So. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Because when Ryan and I when I finally convinced Ryan, it took 6 months to convince Ryan to do the podcast. And then, because he said, I think it's a great idea, but you don't need me to do it. You could just do it and I'll help produce it, but you don't need me on there. And thankfully his partner, Jam, can also convince him he should do it. But then I was like, great, well, we should start recording something next week. And he said, no, we need to work out what we're doing. And I think it was another 6 months after that of like fine tuning what this would actually be before we started it. So that to me I was like, oh gosh, he's not a perfectionist, but if he's going to do something, he's going to do it really properly. And that which is very different to the way I was going to go about it. But I'm very glad we did his approach.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
He's a total pro by the looks of it.
Yeah. And he's the funniest person I've ever met. I've never seen the amazing things with Ryan is what happens when the microphones are not on. He's great when the microphones are on.
Yeah.
And when the cameras are on, he's incredible. But when they're not on, it's just the performances I get. Some of the weird shit that he does. It's just so funny. It's just so funny. So very lucky. Yeah. Very lucky to work with him. But that wasn't a question. So Josh was there as my little brother. I remember the first time I introduced Josh and Ryan, I had we needed someone to do all the tech stuff basically. And Ryan and I had no idea how to do that. And I said, my brother will be good at that. He's good with tech stuff. And we met at a pub not far from here called the Napier. And Josh had just got back from, I can't remember what music festival, it might have been Splendor in the Glass, but he'd had a 4-day bender. And he was very emotional when he turned up, and he didn't say much because he was just completely cooked. And so it's probably an underwhelming first meeting, I'd have to say. But we just needed someone to do the sound, and that was fine. But I sort of think, deep down, I always hoped that he would contribute more than just doing the tech stuff. I felt like he could probably do that. And then the more and more we got into it, the more and more he got comfortable. He just kept asking great questions. Yeah. We'd finish the interview and Josh would say, I just would have loved it if we'd had a question about whatever. And I'd say, do you mind if we do a question, Josh's question? So, and then after a while we decided he had to have a microphone. And then now it's just he's just become more and more confident. In fact, confidence is maybe not the word, because I'd never describe Josh as in a good way. He's not a confident person. He's always, one of the beautiful things about Josh is he wears his self-doubt on his sleeve if that's possible, but that's kind of like, but he's certainly become more convinced that perhaps his questions are good questions. And he's just a wonderful, I mean, I think he's the best part of the podcast, but that's my very biased view.
It's incredible seeing it evolve. And even like I was listening to one the other day with Penny on there.
Yeah.
And by the way, she's just released her book, which is incredible too.
Yes.
We'll give that a plug a little bit later on. But it's cool that you've now got another audience too that like, and it's a bit scary for us to probably admit this, but getting into a stage of our life where you're actually talking seriously about relationships and even kids, and the card thing that you guys were doing, like that's incredible to listen to. So that's another massive thing to commend you on, like holding an audience and growing it. But the question I wanted to ask you, Hugh, is in any of the books or any of the podcasts, have you ever told a story where even to this day when people relayed back to you, you cringe? Like you, which one would that be?
There's a few. There's a few things I think when... That's a really good question. So there's a few things I think when I meet people, I'm like, have they read that? Do they know that about me? And when you're writing a book, well, for me anyway, when I'm writing a book, I didn't think about the fact people would read it until it was too late, until the day before it came out. I was just thinking, what are really good stories that will help prove a point here that I want to make around. So the two are, so there's one from the podcast and one from... Actually, there's a couple of episodes we've done the podcast and we didn't release them because last minute I was like, no, actually, no.
Really?
I'm not doing that. Yeah.
Wow.
One was around friendship, about like best friends, and like I've never felt like I've had a best friend. I've got a lot of really good mates, but I've never felt like I hear people go, my best mate, my best friend. I'm like, I want one. I've never had one of those. Ironically, now I feel like that's just Ryan and Josh because I see them all the time, and it's just. But back then, I remember when Ryan made a lot of jokes afterwards. He's like, you should get a best friend. They're really great. You would really love one. But
Friend.
So we didn't release that. But so the two things I think about are the episode when I drew the card. When we draw cards in our podcast, you have to answer the question. In the Vulnerability House, the question was, what do you look at when you're in the mirror? And the first thing, when I became obsessed with running, it was like I was training with Olympians and all the guys train with their tops off. And they are absolutely shredded. I mean, they're in their early 20s and I'm 43. I was 39 back then when I was training with them. But I was like, I don't have a six-pack. Why? And I became so obsessed with, I just couldn't stop looking at my stomach going, why am I not completely shredded? I do the same training, I eat the same food. And so I just became so self-conscious of that. And there are certain people I meet, people who are not overly vulnerable, so not like you guys, but I'm like, do they know that I'm really worried about the way my appearance, and I feel really funny about that. The other thing is the episode, the chapter in the book that I wrote in Let Go, which was about the condition I had to prove the point in my early 20s, called proctolactophagiacs, where literally every single muscle
that's right.
in your ass spasms and contracts and cramps at once. And it's the most horrific pain I've ever felt in my entire life. I was so mortified. I wrote that in the book as like, what a great way to show how stressed I was in my 20s and how stressful the early 20s was. I wrote it up from the book. The publisher loved it. I was like, great story. I didn't even know there was a thing. And who would have known? And then the day before it came out, I was like, hang on a minute. I don't want people knowing that. And I called the publisher and I can't have that. I cannot have people knowing that. And they went, what?
It's a bit late now, mate.
2 months ago was the deadline for taking stories out. Like, it's printed. Like,
just get a marker and just every single book.
Yeah, I'll come down to the warehouse. I'll tear out all these pages. I don't mind. I'm happy to spend the night doing it. But so that's the other one. I just think I cannot believe I shared that story.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because that's the one story that I always think about. But the reason why, Hugh, is, and this is true. So, and I'm going to embarrass you a bit later. And my girlfriend, who's obsessed with you, right? And I promised I'd come home with some kind of an autograph or a video from you. And I said, she was.
I thought we'll do a video. Autographs are a little bit outdated.
Yeah. Well, she was begging. She unfortunately couldn't be here, but she was like, "Look, I'll do the lighting, I'll do the sound, I'll just do something."
She could have turned the light switch on.
She could have done that, exactly right. But
what's her name?
Tiana is her name. Yeah,
Tiana.
Yeah, she'll be wrapped with that. But the reason why I love that story is.
Do you call her T?
T. Yep. Yes, I do.
Wow, well done.
We don't want to go into that relationship too much, but
there's a lot in there.
But early on in us getting to know each other and dating, very early on, I just read Let Go.
Yeah.
And I had a similar experience, not to the degree that you went through, but I was with her, right? And I'm trying to impress her. It's early on in dating. And
God, that just makes me stressed already. It's such a stressful thing to be doing.
Well, I decided on
dating.
Just like that whole
early
the performance you put on of like, I feel like you kind of grab...
This facade.
Yeah, you're like, who am I going to be on this date? And you grab like bits of things you people like.
I don't wear a hat, but I'll wear it anyway.
I'll hide the balding spots. Yeah. But So I said, look, I'll cook her dinner, right? Now, I'm not a good cook at all, right? And I thought, easiest thing I can prepare is chicken wraps, because the DOS man here loves his chicken wraps. And I learnt through living with him the easy way. You can present it quite nicely, chop up the tomatoes and the lettuce, and everything looks good. So I said, all right, I'll kind
chop
of...
up the tomato. You're not going to put a whole tomato in there. Of course
you chop. Very true, Hugh. Thank you for that.
What's this John Red thing?
So anyway, the presentation looks good, and I've cooked the chicken, and I'm finished eating, and straight away within 20 minutes, my stomach, I'm like, oh, something's gone horribly wrong here, and I'm like, I've eaten something, and she goes to give me a hug, and I said, T, you can't hug me right now, like, please don't. She's like, why? And she's like, I just want, and I'm like, no, I can't, like. So I'm just feeling really, really sick. And then anyway, cut about 2 or 3 hours later, I'm trying to fall asleep, and the guts are just to the point of this pain where I'm like, I'm crawling to the bathroom, like crawling through my bedroom to the bathroom.
Hey, was she sick as well?
She was fine. So I must have had, it might not have been the chicken in fairness, but I haven't had the wraps ever since. This is going back a couple of years. But it was just that, and I'm like, she's going to hear all the vomiting, and she's going to hear the noises, and at this stage,
tiny apartment, mind you.
Apartment, and she's hearing it all. And I'm like, I'm like so embarrassed because it's quite early, and I'm like, well, either if she leaves now, that's fine, that's all good. But the only thing that got me through that moment was that story you told.
Oh, really?
Yes. So that's where I was getting at. So if it wasn't for that chapter in the book, because I recently read it, I'm like, it really impacted me in that moment, which was,
that makes me happy to hear.
There you go. So there's probably millions of people that have gone through the same thing. So I just wanted to personally thank you for that for that story.
No, that is. I mean, that's a nightmare. We Penny and I had been together for 6 months when we went to Sri Lanka together.
Yep.
6 months, I think it's still relatively. Well, we weren't living together, and we certainly weren't sharing a bathroom, but we were staying in a hotel in Sri Lanka, and we both had fish that night.
Oh no.
And I remember waking up at like 2 a.m. going, oh, I'm in trouble here. And I like sprinted to the toilet, and I remember just walking out going, oh my God, she can never know that. And as I'm doing that, she sprinted past me, and then she had to spew in the toilet after what I'd just done in there. And I was like, oh, this relationship has just jumped like 10 levels.
Yeah.
And we were both sick for the next 2 days. Both ends, like,
it's
the worst. It is the worst.
Nothing worse.
No.
Oh, God. Well, I want to touch on as well, I guess we were over in England a couple of years ago, and I was listening to your Let Go audiobook, and funnily enough, I was on the plane when that story, and I was laughing to myself, out loud. But one part that I really related to, and also another episode of your podcast, is about you're looking in the mirror and realising I'm not a young man anymore.
Yeah.
I really like that. Not necessarily related to me, but it made me realise, shit, like we're both nearly 30. Before we know it, like that'll be us.
Yeah.
With your mum and dad, your parents, I guess as you've gone through what you've gone through in the last, like whether it's the business or now that you've had children, how has, I guess, your parents impacted you, I guess, throughout that journey?
The relationship changes massively. But that's one thing I wasn't quite prepared for. So the first thing that happened was I remember looking at Benji when he was born, and mum and dad were there, and we were just sort of looking. He was on the floor on a mat, and he was just making like really cute baby noises. I remember going, oh, hang on a minute. Oh my gosh. So the amount that I love him, that's how much you guys love me. Oh my gosh. Like I never realised how much they love me. Like it's that they love you and always there for you, and they put up with all this shit all the time. But like it really hit me very hard. I was like, gosh, well, that's amazing. And then all the stuff that I do for my kids that is incredibly difficult with 3 kids under the age of 6. I've got 2 siblings, there's 3 of us. Mum and dad did all that stuff for us. And I'm realising, like, intellectually how much your parents sacrifice for you, but to actually live it and go, oh my gosh, they did so much for me. And now they're back in it because they're helping out with our 3. They're there whenever you want them. And so the level of gratitude you have for your own, like if you asked me 6 years ago, you're grateful for your parents, I'd say, yeah, of course I am. Ridiculous question. I wasn't grateful enough and I didn't realise, and now I know. I mean, some of the stuff that they put up with, like if someone did that to me, I plan on letting my kids know about this in 30 years' time. Like I won't let go of to Elsie, who refuses to get in a car seat right now. I feel like in 30 years' time, I'll still be bringing up with her going, that was so unfair. You wouldn't get in the bloody car. Just get in the car. Like it wasn't hard. Like,
simple.
Yeah, but so it's so the love and gratitude of my parents is at a whole new level. I think that's probably the main takeaway from that experience of parenting now.
Yeah.
But I now want my parents around like I did when I was a kid. It's like things are really hard, and I so often find myself going, I need mum and dad. I don't know how to get through this without mum and dad. And you'll call them in your lowest moments because you have so many low moments as a parent where you just you're beyond exhausted. You don't, like, before I had a kid, if I got 5 hours sleep, I'd call in sick. I'm like, I can't go to work. I've only had 5 hours sleep. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
My Garmin the other day said my average sleep for the month of July was 4 hours and 20 minutes. That was my average night's sleep, 4 hours and 20 minutes. And when you're that cooked and then stuff comes up with the kids or you're struggling with something, you just want your mum and dad. And I just call them a lot and I'll just tell them what's going on. And they listen and go, that must be so hard. We're really sorry. And it's kind of like, you're like, great, that's all I needed.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, it's you become a lot closer. That's my experience. And I'm very lucky to have that. I don't know if that's everyone's experience, but it's definitely mine.
On your parents, what do you think they would have, if you went back when you were, say, 20 years old and you were to ask them to predict where you would be in 20 odd years' time, what do you think they would have said?
Oh, that is such a good question. So one of the things I'd say about mum and dad is they've definitely always seen the best in me, like, if that makes sense. Like they're always, I know parents are always biased, but they would always communicate that to me. I think I had high expectations, not in an unhealthy way, but I did. Even when I was teaching, I was thinking, I reckon I've got something in me. Like, I've got something I could do. I don't know what it is. And I think it's because mum and dad always would they would support whatever I wanted to do. Like, I remember age 20, I decided to quit doing neuropsychophysiology, which would have led to literally a career as a neuroscientist or whatever, to work in a gym. And I remember telling them that and thinking, it's probably not what they sent me to a private school for. Not there's anything wrong with working in a gym. In fact, I would love so much to go back and work in that environment now, because I actually see now the value in how physical health leads to mental health it's off the charts. So I'm not having a go to anyone who works in a gym. But at that time, when I was 20 and mum and dad had sent me to a private school and I was doing neuroscience or neurophysiology, to then say I'm going to work, and I wasn't I was like basically a receptionist at a gym. They went, yep, if that's what you're going to do, that's what you should do. Totally understand. You go for it. So very supportive. But whenever I did well at something, I go, yeah, of course you did, because you're very good at this. So they really built me up a lot. I had great self-esteem from mum and dad, their belief. I think they probably thought 20 years ago, I was probably going to end up as a principal of a school, I reckon.
Okay.
That's probably what they thought I was going to do. And I remember being a teacher and seeing what the job of a principal was and going, oh shit, I don't think I want to do that. So I don't know where that leaves me, because I don't want to be a teacher forever. So I'm I don't know what happens next. So I think mum and dad would have thought, so I'm going to ask them that next time I see them. I'm going to ask them, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, cool.
I don't know.
Do they ever mention where you are now and how they feel about that? And do they say we're surprised, we're shocked, or we're that's exactly what we thought would happen? Or
no, Mum says really beautiful stuff. So does dad, but mum says really beautiful stuff all the time around. You continually surprise me and make me so proud of, it could be small things. What's a good example? People often talk to her about the book.
Yeah.
And I think that makes her really proud. Mum's the smartest person I've met in my entire life, and she's a librarian, and her understanding of the English language, her and dad, is just extraordinary. And so the book, I think, is something that makes him very proud. I'm in a this is not a relatable thing to say to the audience, but I'm in a classical music club, which is my dad, my father-in-law, and my father-in-law's brother. And last night I went to the classical music club, and I said, I'm now doing, on Friday mornings I host an hour of radio on talkback radio on ABC. And through that I've met a girl called Megan who hosts ABC Classic FM. And I said, Megan would love to come to our classical music club. And I looked at my dad, and when I said that, the look of pride that he had, I was like,
that's so good.
I've made it. If Megan wants to come to, the host of ABC Classic FM wants to come to our classical music club because of me. I feel like that was, for me, it was always like, I'll make my mum and dad proud by being good at cricket. That was my, And then when I didn't know how to do that, I was like, how do I do this here? But I think we're also, this is a big generalisation, but so many of us are still so keen to impress our parents and
100%.
and to win our parents' approval and love and affection. And, you do something well, the first thing I still do is tell mum and dad. Like, there's still that level of, I'm trying to think of good examples.
But we're fortunate too that we were brought up with loving and supporting parents, because I understand now, having met a lot more people, that is not the case, and probably a lot lower percentage than I would have imagined. Because growing up as a kid, you think, this is everyone's parents are like normal. This. Everyone's normal. But then the more people you meet across life, you're like, gee, I was so lucky and fortunate.
Totally.
Because I was the same. They never put pressure on me. I dropped out of school where my dad didn't mind because he's an entrepreneur and he did the same thing. My mum probably wasn't wrapped, but there was always support behind that. And whatever we do, I mean, they don't like some of the things we talk about in the podcast, and they're open about that, but they always support us for it.
Here's an example. I'll embarrass my mum here because she's not a loyal listener. I'll tell her that. But she goes...
She's not a loyal listener?
No, she doesn't, because she obviously doesn't want to hear some of the stories. But today was a big deal, and she knew that. I flew down to Melbourne for it, and she messaged me this morning. She goes, "Is your interview with Kyle today?" I said... Mum, his name's Hugh. Oh, sorry.
I get called Kyle so much.
Do you actually?
Yep.
Where does that come from?
I think from Cuylenburg. I think that the Kyle.
Of course.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think a lot of people just go, "Hey, Kyle."
But I was like, "Mum, come on, you understand it. At least get his name right."
No, that's a common mistake.
All right.
Well, I'd be interested too. So Benji comes to you now in 15, 20 years' time, and he comes back from the hairdresser, and he's got the peroxide haircut. His dad. How supportive are we of that decision?
I am 100% behind whatever anyone. In terms of what I love about this area here, we're in Collingwood. I love that whatever you want to look like is totally fine.
Yeah,
like it's like pretty much a judgment-free zone, and that is absolutely the. We don't talk about our kids too much in the podcast because we kind of have this thing of like their story is their story, and I don't want them to ever listen back to our podcast and go, "What did you tell people that for?"
Yeah.
But I will say this: Benji the other day was in his sister's room and he was like, "That's a really cool dress." We were looking at Elsie's dresses, and I was very quick to say, and he wasn't saying this, but I was so quick to go, "Mate, you want to wear a dress? I will get you a dress. Like, we can go show him for a dress." And he went, "No, I just like that dress." And I went, I think I went a bit too far. I was like, "Why don't we go get you one? And we'll get you one if you want to wear it, you can wear it." No, I don't want to, but I just think that's a nice dress. So I will, whatever they want to look like, whoever they want to be, I cannot wait to be absolutely their number one cheerleader. Like, I will be so... Ryan tells a beautiful story. So this is Ryan Shelton's story, but one of his really good mates is a very, very successful artist in Australia. And Ryan tells us, well, I guess it's the artist story, but... And I won't say his name because I don't have a passion for the story, but when he was growing up, he made it clear he wanted to be an artist. And his dad's like, here's a... clear out the shed for you, and he would sit. I hope I got the story right, Ryan, but he would sit behind his son as he was painting and just clap.
Wow.
And go, "That is awesome.
Yeah,
what you're doing." And I that's who I want to be for my kids. I just like, you be whoever you want to be, because I grew up thinking, not because of mum and dad, but just the school I went to was like, you need to do well at school, you need to get really good marks, you need to be good at sport, you need to look a certain way. And I wish so much that it was like, just wear whatever the fuck you want. It's totally fine. Yeah. Be whoever you want to be. Just, that's who I am. So peroxide hair, I don't care what colour it is. It's, I'll probably if he was going to get my advice, I'd go, maybe move away from the peroxide. But if that's what you want to do, that's what you can do.
Did it help you a lot in the early kind of,
It did. Yeah. Because I honestly, in my early 20s, I was receding a lot, as I've talked about a lot on our podcast. And so I grew my hair really long. And I cannot find a photo of it, amazingly.
Really?
This is before like social media, before we all had cameras in our phones. So if you were going to go out and get photos of your night out, you'd have to bring a massive camera. It was just weird. So no one ever did that. I had like hair down to my shoulders, and I had so much I could scruff it forward a bit, but it was peroxide blonde. And it was kind of my identity. It was like, I was like blonde, like longish sort of blonde. It was like Owen Wilson hair.
Very nice.
So it was very much like that, the same kind of do as Owen Wilson, like pulled forward at the front and then just everywhere. And it was just my identity of like, that was who I was. I remember when I was 20, I I kept doing it till I was like probably 27, I reckon.
Really?
Yeah, see, I kind of always dabble. So I go back from like, I'm 28 now. So I'm like, maybe I've just passed.
You missed it
point.
now, yeah.
Yeah, I think I might have missed
But
it.
you could pass as 18. So I think you
Thank
can
you.
keep doing it.
Really?
Definitely. I reckon.
Oh,
You don't reckon?
Well, we spoke about the girlfriend.
When you said
she's dead against it. She said, "Don't you dare do that."
Yeah.
Well,
So,
that's something you have to. Yeah,
and
it's
that's been
important,
the common feedback from girls that I've actually gone on to date.
Yeah.
They said get rid of it. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I don't know.
I really relate about what you were saying before. Like same with you, D. My mum and dad never had any pressure whatsoever to be at a certain point in where I should be, whether I was academically. I wasn't great at sport. I'm pretty open with that on this show. Like, love sport. You mentioned when earlier.
Not as bad as you say though. You're handy.
But like, unfortunately, Hugh, you mentioned it at the start. You get to an age where you realise you're not going to make it.
Oh yes, yeah.
And we've openly spoken about that. And I had a moment where, I would have been 15. And I remember in bed, I was literally lying in bed. I couldn't get to sleep. And I was like, I'm not going to play for the Western Bulldogs. Like, I've just realised it. Like,
It's an awful moment.
Like, all my mates
It's
have
an
been
awful
picked for
moment.
rep footy. I'm not. I'm like, I went downstairs and Dad was watching a show and Archie was crying and he literally said, mate, I've been in the exact same position. He goes, I know how you feel. Amazing. It's just that point. Like, and that I'll never forget that night.
Who was your favourite player? Was it Bob Murphy?
Growing up, I had a family connection with the footy club through Paul Hudson. So he played for the Doggies.
Wow. Yeah.
And so my old man was his agent, his manager.
Right.
And so I loved Hutto. And then probably Brad Johnson.
Yeah,
Jono
okay.
over the years. But maybe that's a good moving kind of topic.
Just real quick before we move on, but has there ever been a more likeable team from the Bulldogs in the early 2000s? Mid 2000s, like
when they were sizzling in the mid 2000s, I agree.
Scotty West,
Scotty
and
West,
just those like
GR.
They all grew up in like the western suburbs of Melbourne as well. Like they were genuinely. Josh, so my brother Josh shot a whole. He's a videographer, and I don't know who he shot. Might have been the AFL, but it was like when those players were all retiring. I think he interviewed quite a few of them.
Wow.
And he heard a story that I can't remember who it was. One of those players, someone like a Scotty West. I don't think it was Bob Murphy, but someone like a Scott West or someone like that would cook on Thursday nights after training, would cook a roast for everyone or a curry for everyone. And he would bring down this massive curry and everyone would have curry after training on Thursday, just like a local footy club. And he would provide it every single Thursday night.
They are a very likeable bunch. And like I was going to ask in terms of
no one hates the Bulldogs.
Everyone's
no
second team.
Yeah.
awesome. And
because they're good people. Like,
and well, I'm sure there's probably lots of other clubs that have good blokes as well, but something about the Dogs.
That's true,
but meeting your heroes. So and for me, my heroes obviously growing up were footballers.
Yeah.
And then into later years, Hamish and Andy, they've always been two of mine that I've just always loved, to the point where like that helped me through a really, really rough time. My dad, he passed away from cancer about 7 years ago now. And I remember through that, through that whole period, every night I'd have one of their shows on because it just made me feel comfortable, and it helped me go to sleep every night. And I love the story that you tell about, meeting Hamish and the whole kerfuffle with the hand thing. And once you tell yours, I've got a similar one, which is super embarrassing, but when I had an interaction with them and it was in South Melbourne and I made an absolute dick of myself and it was shit. Yeah.
They are such good people. They would have loved it. I can't. Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. Well, that is the power of like what they do. Like to you figure, I can't, that must have been so hard and I'm so sorry that you went through that. And I can't relate because I haven't been through it. But that's the, they kept you comfort and they kept you smiling. And for that very same reason, they were very much my heroes as well. Like as someone who was I always wanted to to help people to be happier. That's always what I wanted to do. As a primary school teacher or now the Resilience Project or the podcast, that's always what I wanted to do. And no one does it better than Hamish and Andy. Like their audience it's ridiculously big. And every time you listen to them, they make you feel happy. That's what they do. And so for that reason, they were very much, looking up to them as well. Like I lived quite close to Hamish in my mid-30s and I'd see him around a lot and I always wanted to tell him that, but just didn't. There's a couple of times, I remember once I was cleaning my car outside our place on Webb Street in Fitzroy and Hamish and Zoe walked past me and they had their son, Sonny, in their pram, who would have been a few months old at the time. And I was like, my ass was hanging out of the car. I was like head first in the car trying to do the vacuuming thing in all the nooks and crannies. And I like stood up and turned around. They were just walking past, and I just went, awesome. That's all I said. I haven't said it to Hamish. I don't know if he won't remember it, but I just went, because people say it all the time. I just went, awesome. Like with my hands outstretched like that.
I'm going to use that.
Funny.
That's all I could think to say. And he goes, thanks, man. And I remember it so clearly. And then one day, these are things I haven't told him, but another time we were outside a cafe in Fitzroy, and I heard a rumour that they named their son Sonny after this song, The Obvious Child, a Paul Simon song, one of my favourite songs.
I thought we were going down Boney M then for a second. Do you know that song?
No.
No? Oh, that's all right. Okay. Tell you off air.
Got it again.
That's 3 now. And so I thought that they named, Sonny after The Obvious Child, the song. And so Hamish and I went to walk into the cafe at the same time. This is again when Sonny was very young, had the pram there, and I held the door open for him as he walked past. I went, had a little son, thought we'd call him Sonny, because that's how the song starts. And he goes, okay. And just kept walking. And I was like, oh, maybe I didn't sing it well enough. But I asked him like a month ago, I said, did you guys name? And he goes, no, we didn't. And I went, in my head, I'm like, that's why you didn't.
There you
make
go.
sense when I sung a weird song to him. So that's actually, that's 2 other meetings I've had with him.
Oh, gosh.
So there were 2 before the infamous one that made it to the book, where I essentially, long story short, and you can read about it in the book, or you can read about it in the book, but long story short, I was so nervous. He said, do you want to do a high five? And I was like, I'll do a fist pump because that's cooler and he'll think I'm a cool guy. So I went to do a fist pump, and he saw my fist coming, and I saw his outstretched hand because he did say high five. At the very same time we swapped. I ended up high-fiving his fist.
God.
And then I got so I just grabbed his fist and just started shaking it. That was a long time ago. That was like probably 8 or 9 years
really?
ago now. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, God. That's so funny. Yeah, mine was, I was in South Melbourne for work. I was just working at a cafe. I can't remember where it was. And it involved Hamish, Andy, and Ryan. So Ryan was there too. And this might be actually a little bit of dirt that you can throw back at Ryan because I have no idea what they were doing. But I can't remember the exact street it was on. But I was sitting outside at the cafe, and they were walking towards the outside bit. So right before they got towards the cafe, I'm thinking, they're coming. So do I ask for $1 here? What do I do?
Oh, yeah.
And I was preparing. I was trying to amp myself up. I was like, do it. And then they turned into like a little apartment, and I was like, oh, thank God. Like, I don't have to talk to them. Well, that was just Hamish and Andy together as they walked down. Then they went up. And then they came down with Ryan. Then there's 3 Harley Davidsons rock up with 3 bikies on them. There's 3 extra helmets. All 3 of them get on the back of a Harley each. And
amazing.
And they all reverse out. And they're all videoing themselves. And I'm like, oh, I've got to say something. So I just, when they all went one by one, Hamish was the last one. I said, good on you, Hamish. And no, he didn't hear it. And everyone in the cafe looked at me like, what? And then I was, oh no.
So people in the cafe saw you trying
to make contact with him.
And they also saw that Hamish didn't say it.
Yes.
Oh.
One of the things I love about Dos, Hugh, is that he's got this. I think it's a superpower, to be honest. I think it's actually quite admirable. But when he sees someone that he recognises, and by the way, I've never seen someone that can identify a player that played in the AFL in say 2005 and played 3 games, and he just got that. What's it called? Photographic memory, where he could just identify. We'll be driving. He goes, oh, there goes so and so. Gee, I haven't heard that name for 20 years, but he recognises. But he has this ability and need. He has to say something. He just has to say something. And
why not though?
It's not. Like I said, it's not a bad thing. It's a superpower because I'm probably more shy.
Yeah,
like
me too. Yeah.
The other day, like I was in Subway and I'm a Saints supporter, and we saw one of the players came in and he was getting Subway, about to go after the game, and one of the boys texted Dos, and Dos just couldn't believe that we didn't go up and interrupt his conversation.
Which player was it?
Cal Wilkie.
Right. Okay.
And
what was the first thing I said on the message?
He's just like, and what did you say to him? Like, mate, we were sitting down eating our meal. Like, we would have had to get up, go into the line, cut a few people off to say something about the game tonight. And
well, I'm interested to know, Dos, what would have you said to him if you were there?
Pretty simple. I would have said, how you feeling about tonight, mate? Good luck. Good luck for tonight, Cal.
And God forbid he runs into anyone associated with the Western Bulldogs, because then the opinions start to come out.
To the point where I think in one of our favourite cafes where we're living in Hawthorn, Blood Orange. And
where's Blood Orange?
What road is
just
that?
off Auburn Road and what was it?
Oh,
Camberwell Road.
Yes.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yep.
It's really good. And Matt Spang is one of the assistant coaches at the Dogs.
Is he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I know that.
Are you
I
a
didn't
Hawk
know-
supporter?
Yeah.
Yeah. And waiting for my coffee outside, and he's the assistant coach. Like, he's not like,
Yeah.
you know, not many people would know.
Yeah.
And I just had to say so. I was like, a bit disappointing about the result last night. How was it? Spang or whatever I call it. Matt?
And I think the way he took it, as he was having a dig at him because they lost the night before.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it did. The way you said it sounded like you're having a crack at it.
Yeah, and he just went, yeah, mate, it wasn't great. And then I'm like, oh, well, he doesn't like me anyway. But yeah, it's a superpower of
It's
mine.
a
somehow.
superpower. Now, should we get into fan questions? I'm mindful of time.
What is the time? Because what I'm going to do is, this has probably never happened on your podcast ever before. I am going to
Leave right now.
No.
Our sponsors will not be happy with that.
So as you guys know, I turned up like 20 minutes late, and I have a 12 o'clock meeting here. And so I'm going to message, and I didn't message them to say I'm going to be now 20 minutes late for them. So
Okay.
I'm going to message them as and just saying, should I say 12:15? Is that?
That's
perfect.
fine. We'll get through our fan questions and our
Does
quiz.
this- do you guys edit this? Will you be editing
Yes,
this out?
we'll
Or-
edit it.
we'll edit it.
We'll
If you want to
edit
keep
this
it
out.
in, I don't mind. If you
Okay,
want to keep it in.
we'll see how. We'll see how.
Ums, ahs.
It'll look like the rudest guest ever, just like texting.
that might be our teaser. We're talking to each other. He's just doing this all the time.
That's it.
Our dream guest is what we got for an hour.
Yeah. Well, this might be a good chance to read the ad read.
Absolutely great time. So it's time for fan
No,
questions.
hang on. No, sorry.
Ooh.
I've got a question. I've
yeah.
sent a message. I've got a question before we move on. Because
Okay.
if you are very good with names, I would like to
okay.
know if you know the name Michael Ricks.
I do.
Really?
St Kilda.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
No idea.
Okay.
Is he doing things over in Bali?
No. So
No, okay.
Rixie was one of my best mates at school. How's this for a story?
This
was
was one
in
of the
the-
Resilience Project.
it's in the book, isn't it?
Yes.
Is he in the book?
No, I reckon he might be.
No.
Potentially. No?
No, I don't think I read about Rixie ever.
Is
It's a good idea,
is this Rack?
No.
Oh,
no,
okay.
This is Michael Ricks.
Oh,
So-
okay. Sorry.
So Michael Ricks I went to school with, and one of my best mates at school, and he didn't play first 18 footy at school. He was in the seconds for the whole season. And literally 3 years later, he's ruckman for St Kilda. He grew 6 inches after school, like literally 6 inches. He went through puberty after school. He was 18, 19 years old. And he went from being skinny and shorter than me, and I'm 6 foot. So he's like skinny and 5'11", to being pretty well recognised as the biggest man in the AFL. He was a monster of a man. He looks like He-Man, beautiful man. Also the smartest person I've ever met in my entire life. And is now working in New York in like banking and stuff. But
Wow.
played like 30 games, played
Wow.
with Rewalt, Del Santo.
Really?
Montana was like best mates with them. And Brian, back then they used to give the worst on ground award.
Triple M.
And BT, I think for a while he called it the Michael Ricks Award,
Oh,
which is so rough because BT coached him
that's
knows-
harsh.
and knows that you cannot get a nicer person.
Yeah.
There's
So it's
no
an
one
easy
nicer
target.
than Michael Ricks, and he did so well to get to that level. They didn't have a ruckman, so he was their ruckman, and I think he did a very good job. But anyway,
Wow.
side note.
Come on, BT.
Yeah, come on, BT. All right, Dossie, it's time for fan questions brought to you by our good friends Bank of Queensland, Frankston and Moonee Ponds. Head online to BOQ Frankston or BOQ Moonee Ponds and reach out to John or Amy and see how they can bring the relationship and care back to your banking. Now,
Love it.
fan questions, Dossie. Let's
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go first.
Okay. Oh, this is fun. Have you ever pulled a prank on someone? And if so, what was the best one?
This is who asked that question? We got a name there because it's a prank.
Oh, that's Tiana. That's Tiana.
Oh, it's T.
Yeah, it's
How are you,
T.
T?
That's 2 for her. Wow, and you know what? I don't think we've ever dropped their name on the pod.
There you go.
There you go.
I'm so sorry. I actually don't think pranks are just not my. I love watching them. There's you know that show Fear Factor?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where
Joe
they're like,
Rogan.
Oh yeah. Well, no, he probably wasn't back in the day when it started because it used to be on like 2000. In year 2000, it was a show.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think he was like doing stuff then. But there was one where they set up this guy. This is my favourite prank I've ever seen, but terrifying. Well, there's 2 actually. They set up one where there was this guy. It was his uni job, part time, just going to clean up this lab. And they said to him, "Oh, just so you know, like we're doing some pretty weird experiments with humans and rats in here. So just like it's a bit strange in here." And he's in there. You can look it up. It's like Rat Boy or something. And this uni student's cleaning it. And all of a sudden, he opens his cupboard, and this thing comes out of him. It's like about 2 feet tall with like this rat's head, but then like human legs. I don't know how they made it. It's the most terrifying thing I've ever seen in my entire, and it chased him around the thing. He nearly had a heart attack like in past twice.
Oh my gosh.
There was another one in that series where they got a babysitter over to this house. First time she'd been over to the house. And they got an axe murderer in to pretend they were going to murder her.
Oh, that's
with an
horrible.
axe.
That's horrible.
And then he like goes, yeah. And he goes, the stand line, he goes, are you scared? She goes, yes. Like, what do you mean? You're about to kill yeah. She answered it so logically. He goes, yes, I'm so scared. You're about to kill me. He goes, it's just a TV show.
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine? You can't do that these days. Anyway.
No.
I haven't done a prank. I don't think I've ever done a prank. Oh, I'll tell you a prank I had done to me in Adelaide in the Australian 19s Championships 1999. It's the last game of, so it was March. Was it March? Anyway, I wasn't going to be playing cricket for a couple of months afterwards, whenever it was. And someone found a dead bird and put it in my bag.
Oh.
It was there for 2 months.
Oh, what? You didn't, what? You were just wondering what the smell was? Or?
I put it in the shed. I put it in the garage.
Oh, no.
And it was like in my helmet as well.
Oh, that's disgusting.
It's a good one.
It is.
It is a good
It's
one.
a massive stitch up. Yeah.
Now, does this question ring a bell for you, Hugh? So there's a photo we put up for the fan questions, and why did you roll your sleeves up in this photo? Are you trying to show off? You might have forgotten about this.
Yeah, I think he has.
Now, that comes from, I don't know if I can pronounce his name, Hugh van Cuylenburg.
I think it's Kyle.
Yeah.
Well, it was the first thing I thought when I saw that photo. I was like, why you got your sleeves up? Well, you don't need to have your sleeves up. It was possibly because I was happy with my physique at the time. To reveal more of it, yeah.
Love it.
Which is, I just got to move away from that now. I'm 43.
Hamish, Andy, and Jack say you waffle in your voice messages to make plans. Any rebuttals?
Yeah, I do have some rebuttals actually. So, yes, I do like voice memos. I think they're a great way of communicating. They don't, which is totally fine.
Yeah, they take the mickey out of it.
They hate them. They start their show with a voice memo.
Very true.
That's the start of their show. Like they want. That's how they.
Yep.
Like they are a user, like listener generated content, and they say send us a voice memo.
But they also take the mickey out of it because they say it takes forever to upload. And
I do know from someone who creates content, your opener needs to be good, and they open with a voice memo. That's
very true.
So they'll obviously
It's a good rebuttal. Very good rebuttal.
Very good.
This one comes from Mikey. Favorite person you have interviewed on your program?
Oh,
tough question.
I loved the interview with Harry Garside.
that was
one of
one.
my favourites. It's almost like being asked to choose your favourite kid.
Yeah. Except you've breeded a lot.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Darcy Vesio, I love that interview.
Oh, cool.
Glenn Robbins was just. The whole time I found it very hard to interview him because I was sitting there going, I can't believe Glenn Robbins.
That's how I felt today.
That's how I feel today as well.
So I feel like I've interviewed really badly today
because you're just so
because I'm just so
and you're listening to every word
I know.
he says. Yeah,
I'm overthinking it. I'm going bloody hell, like God.
No, but like just feedback for you. Like I just feel like I've forgotten we're doing a podcast. I feel like we're literally catching over coffee. Nice. So you've done a great job because I haven't felt like not one point have I felt like you've gone. Also, I just want like it felt very natural.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
A big Glenn Robbins one. I felt I was just going. I don't know what to do.
Surely Ben Crow was massive. Like everyone loved that one.
Yeah, I know Ben very well. So for me, that was like I remember
because that was huge. I loved that one and the second part.
Yeah, that episode. I remember sitting there just thinking, I'm so happy the world's hearing this because this is just such important stuff. The Hamish Blake one was surreal because I was a huge fan, and then so there was a lot to that which we talked about a bit on the episode. But Hamish and I had lunch just before it, and I'm not very good with time, as you guys saw today, although that wasn't my fault. Hamish is also not great with time, and so we turned up quite late for our own interview.
Jeez, you wouldn't have been happy with that.
And you're a very punctual person.
Oh, mate, I've never met a more...
Okay, well, which I admire so much.
It's just one of my... it got drilled into me by my old man. Like, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late. And it's just the way I live my life. But
I love it. Yeah. I respect that so much.
Sorry to throw you under the bus. I didn't mean that. Sorry.
No. I wish I was like that. Whenever I am early to something, I just feel so great.
I'm the same. I'm not great.
My flaws are in many other areas. So,
well, so on that day, Hamish and I turned up late to our own interview, and it caused Ryan a bit of stress with the stuff we spoke about with his like, what's going on with his friendship? Where does it put me? And so that was I remember getting into the studio and sensing. I remember putting my hand on Ryan. I was like, "Is everything you all right?" And he goes, "Yeah." But I could tell something wasn't quite right, and that was an intense hour because I was so worried about if I'd done something to upset Ryan.
Right.
But then also Hamish is there and I wanted to do a really good interview. And so I just felt that was an intense pressure.
That's hard.
Wouldn't say I'm every time I speak to Hamish, it's thoroughly enjoyable, but I was quite stressed during that one there. I love the Kate Langbrook episode. Every episode I've thoroughly enjoyed.
Sorry. I was just saying.
No more questions?
Yeah.
You reckon leave it? Yeah, all right. Yeah.
I can do one more. That's okay.
Because we still have the quiz to do.
We got the quiz. Yeah,
the
that's the only reason I was cutting Dos short there. Because we're going to do the quizzes for YouTube.
This is you proving that you are legit with time.
Oh no, I'm
Hugh's got a 12:15. I cannot have Hugh being late to the 12:15.
I'm mindful of that.
Hang on. What did Whitney write back to my thing? I'll be 12:15. No worries at all.
Okay, good. We're safe.
Thank you.
So we're going to do a quiz for the YouTube only viewers.
Okay,
so the podcast is going to end here. So Hugh, firstly, for those that have listened to today's podcast, we just want to thank you because we don't say this lightly. You truly are an inspiration to us, a reason why we started, a reason why we do what we do, a hero of ours, and thank you for giving us the time. You sent us a voice message which brought tears to Dos's eyes.
I genuinely cried.
I was shaking when it happened, like it was nuts. So and for us, just they're those little.
Didn't we have quite a few back and forth?
We did.
Yeah.
But it's those moments where you go, and we talked off air, but when you work so hard for something and you get those little wins, it's just a voice message from someone you admire. For us, it meant the world. So thank you so much for your time today.
Well, I can just on that. We sort of just with the amount of workload I had this year, I was like, I don't think I'm going to do podcast interviews this year. Like I'm just going to cut back. But when I understood what you guys do, it was like it's a no-brainer because I genuinely feel like this is such an important podcast and it's such important conversations that I wish I had the privilege to listen to when I was in my 20s. I really do. So it's incredible what you're doing and you're very good at it. So I think I was always going to do this.
Thank you so much. It means the world. We'll put, of course, all the links to purchase your books, to listen to the podcast, the website, everything.
The Amazon special.
The Amazon special. There's so much, so everyone will have the links in the show notes. They can check.
By the way, I watched the Australian story, and that was really nice too. Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah.
That was a very nerve-wracking experience because they followed me for a year.
Really,
and they had a lot of footage of all types. I had no idea what story they were going to tell, and I was so happy with the way they did it. I thought they were great.
Amazing. Well, thank you again, Hugh. Really appreciate it. For the YouTube viewers, we're going to invite Bailey in, and Bailey's going to be our quiz master today. And what we're doing is we've got 10 questions, I believe. They're general knowledge, 5 are AFL, which probably suits us a little bit more, and 5 are cricket focused. So, Hugh,
it's amazing how bad I am at trivia, and even on my favourite topics, I'm terrible. So
we'll see how you go today.
Typically it's a buzzer format, so it's like dos&d. Are you happy with Hugh?
Yeah,
dos&d Hugh. Do you have a shorter nickname than that?
Hugh's fine.
So Bailey will ask a question. We'll buzz in, and Bailey will then give us the option. If you buzz too early, then he'll cut the question short. So let's see how we go.
Right, how are we doing, fellas?
Good, Bailey. We're ready to go.
Building a bit of rapport at the start. I like it, mate.
Yeah, I like it.
Which Australian cricketer has the nickname Mr. Cricket?
Hugh.
Ooh, that was Hugh.
I reckon. Geez, you want to get this wrong? Mike Hussey.
Well done.
Point to you.
Correct.
Hugh won.
How many test matches has Stuart Broad won in Australia?
Hugh. 1. No.
He's already gone, so...
You're going to buzz in? D.
Sorry to interrupt. You're correct.
Oh, it is one! On the edge of my seat.
Second test of the 2010 series.
Yep, 2010, 2011.
Okay.
Yep.
2-0-0. Come
I
on,
thought
Dos.
they won.
He smashed it. It's cricket's not my strong... I don't know cricket.
I thought he was into 2007. Yeah, anyway, yes. It's one.
All right. Shane Warne took the most Ashes wickets with 195 in total. Which Australian bowler is second to Warney with 157?
Got it?
There.
Is that correct?
Points. Yep.
Okay, that's 3-0.
Now,
This is better.
just if he buzzes in early, cut the question.
Yeah.
All right. Who bowled the first bowl of the 2006-7 Ashes?
That's Harmison.
Correct.
Yes.
Very good.
Come on, Jai. What's with the questions, mate?
All right, moving on to footy now.
Oh, yes.
Which two teams have won the most VFL, AFL premierships?
Dos. Essendon. Carlton.
Correct.
2-1-1.
Buddy Franklin has recently retired from the AFL, kicking a total of 1,066 goals, finishing 4th in the all-time goal kickers list. Name 2 players who have kicked more
Dos.
goals.
Tony Lockett. Jason Dunstall.
Yep, correct.
2, 2,
Who's
1.
the other one?
Gordon Coventry.
Oh, yes. Hence the Coventry end.
Yes. Hence the Coventry.
Where were the 2020 and 2021 AFL
Dos.
Grand Final?
Brisbane, Perth, or Optus Stadium and the Gabba.
Correct.
He's flying now. 3,
Hang on. It was 3-3-1.
3, 2. Are you 3 or
Did I get
He's 3.
Oh, yeah,
3,
3.
2,
1?
1.
All right. 3, 3, 1.
Who won the 2008 Brownlow medal?
Dos. Adam Cooney.
Correct.
Oh, I would not have. Hang on.
He's right.
Yeah.
The
Gaza was 09, which Cooney kissed his forehead.
Come onto your podcast and argue with you. No, that's right.
Sorry, Hugh.
In 2005 and 2006, we saw 2 classic AFL Grand Final thrillers between Sydney and West Coast, where each team won by less than a goal against each other. What is the combined winning margin?
Dos. 2 points.
No.
Isn't it 1
D,
point? 1
D.
point for each?
D. That'd be 5. 4 and 1, was it?
Oh, it was 1 4
5
points. I
points.
thought they were both 1 point.
I cannot believe how much I don't know about football. I have no
Yeah,
idea.
but you smashed the cricket. Dominated.
So you're still ahead, aren't you? You're 1 ahead of Hugh?
Yeah.
4, 3, 2, I think.
All right, well, we got one question left. It's another cricket question.
Oh.
This
Can Hugh-
tie between,
can
or
Hugh
can
tie?
it be a 3-way tie? You're on, I think it's 2, 3, 3.
No, I'm 1 behind. I'll sit this one out. I'll leave it to you
Okay.
2. 4
All
and
right.
3.
Steve Smith made his debut for Australia against Pakistan in 2010. Which number did he bat at in his first
Hugh.
inning?
8.
Correct.
Oh, well played.
So that's
Well done.
That's equal though.
Is it?
Yeah.
What do we do?
I thought, isn't it 4-3?
Oh, no, you're right. You went.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's
4,
won.
3. Hugh's won.
Well done.
Well done, Hugh.
Well, thanks, Hugh.
Tim Payne also played in that game.
Did he?
That was his debut. So not played. He debuted in that game as well.
Oh, wow.
Well, well
Two
done, Hugh.
stars.
That's outstanding.
Great stat to finish.
What a strange flex that is. I know another stat about that game.
Well, there you go. We don't have a trophy, but congratulations.
Yeah, you'll never forget that, will you? Well, thank you to everybody watching on YouTube. Appreciate it. And thank you once again, Hugh.
Thanks, Hugh. It means the world to us, mate.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I hope you had some fun at the end.
Loved it. Very good.